live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, social economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
Welcome to Atlantic Television Network Book World. Book World is a program where we get to dive into the realms of literature, and we also meet the amazing and brilliant minds behind the various masterpieces. Today on Book World, we'll be reviewing a book called The Perceptual Predestination. And we have the author of this book right here with us. Yes, he's hanging out with me today. I am Enidoye Jackson, and I have with me Ken-Mbata. Ken-Mbata is a broadcast journalist, and he's also the author of the book I already mentioned to you. Why the name? You get to find out from Ray. Welcome, Ray.
It's a pleasure having you.
Yes, thank you for joining me.
It's a pleasure joining me.
Yeah, so you can call him Ray, or you can call him Ray Ray. You look good, Ray.
Thank you very much, and you look smashing.
Thank you. I am so eager to find out why the name Perceptual Predestination on this book, and yes, that's going to be my very first question to you, Ray. How did you come about the name Perceptual Predestination?
Perceptual predestination intones the ability God, the creator of all things, has put in his creation, and the primary creation of his is man. Man, I mean, is male and female, humans. He put
Sounds like the Bible language, man.
Yes. He put in us the ability that differentiates and that distinguishes us from other creations, mostly animals.
Okay.
The ability to be able to foresee the future, even from the present. The ability to perceive, although not seeing with your eyes, but led by the Spirit, you are able to perceive what will happen in the future. The future is what I mean by predestination. Stuff that you don't have control over, but will happen, either or either. It's not within the powers of humans, but it is within the powers of humans to know, but not to be able to change the course of what is going to happen. That is predestination. So perceptual predestination means the ability God the Creator has given to man to be able to foresee or perceive what will happen in the future.
But not necessarily to change it, but just to know what's going to happen in the future.
Only the Creator
can change it. Okay, so let's delve into the book just a little bit. The book is it's actually a poetic work, and it's divided into two. We have the satires of inglory and the dark hope of the luminous. You might get to hear words you haven't seen in the dictionary, but that's why we have the author right here with us. He will give you all of the explanations that you need.
Exactly.
All right, looking at chapter 1, we have this book. It's divided into two parts, which I already said, and we have from chapter 1 to chapter 6. And chapter 1 is exposing the innate murderous tendencies of man and his cruel dominion over his fellow man. And then we have chapter 2, which is highlighting the travels and core problem of the black race. You get to find out more about that as we discuss the poems for that. And then on chapter 3, we have it highlighting violent man to be superhumans, and in order to possess supernatural powers, over their fellow humans on earth. And then we have chapter 4, talking about the continuous saga, and it ends up revealing weaknesses, and it recites confessions of the violent man. And chapter 5, it uncovers a more enlightened Africa. So just like Rhea said, he's looking into the future and portraying that in some of the poems we have in this book. And then on chapter 6, it's revealing the hope, revealing the light, rest, love, and promise on the irony of finding happiness in any situation. I have my favorite poem on that part of it. But now let's go straight to my next question for my guest Ray. What's the inspiration behind these poems we have in this book?
Actually, it is the intention of man to try to manipulate events happening around him in order for him to be assured of what his future will be like. I, as a human too, being on earth, being in Africa, being in Nigeria, I saw it as a duty to be able to key in to what God has given to me, to perceive nature, to perceive the earth, and look into the status quo of the earth and see where I place into the earth. And not just me, and also every other human being that exists on earth here. And what role do we play in making sure that earth is as orderly as it is, even within the confines of the laws of God? Because there are people that don't believe that God has positioned these laws in a way that we should exist within the laws. And there are those that came in to abide by the laws that God has given. In that point, from that perspective, I decided that I will look into the earth and every creation by God and see where I place in between what God has positioned for me. And not just for me, both for my family and both for every other person that I can be able to discuss this with. Starting even with your delectable self.
Okay.
I believe that at the end of this interview, you will be able to understand why I wrote Perceptual Predestination. It's not just in the cover of the book. The book is very beautiful. The cover is nice. But the content reveals the intent I have in creation of this book.
Sounds very personal.
Yes, it is personal.
And would it be okay to say it's a Christian poem? We have Christian poems in it?
I would say that I am a Christian, but I did not write a Christian book.
Okay.
I wrote a book of convictions, using poetry as a language of delivery.
All right.
In my convictions, I will also show my leanings, my ideologies, and where I believe in. And most of it based on the fact that I was born in a Christian home and I attended Christian organizations.
And you're a Christian?
I am a Christian by choice.
Okay, not just that. Okay, let's go out of that. Let us start by discussing the structure of the book. I already stated earlier that it's divided into two parts.
Exactly.
The satires of inglory and the dark hopes of luminous.
Exactly.
And I like the way you mentioned that when you talk about it. So your portrayal of societal issues and human nature is very vivid in this poems. So let's look at the very first part, the satires of inglory. You address the innate tendencies of man towards violence and domination. I'd like you to elaborate on these themes in the poems that are in the first part.
There are circumstances that man has found himself in that can make man to think that he is God on earth.
Okay.
There are men that don't believe that there is a God. There are men that don't believe that there is a creator. They believe that they are the embodiment of creation and creator. And I tried my possible best, using poetry as a language of delivery, to elaborate the journeys of those men. I'm saying men as humans, both men and women. I tried to elaborate the journeys that those men that believe that they are gods on earth, they are God the creator on earth, how far they went and how much the conviction proved to be true or false. And at the end of it, I discovered that many of them fell short of what their expectations are. The fact that you look at yourself in the mirror and see how wonderfully you are made doesn't mean you came out like that. You were made by something. You were made by someone. And many people don't believe that. So I try to use poetry to encompass the frailty of man. And yes, because man is frail.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about that part where you said men who feel like they are God on earth.
Yes.
So a lot of people's mind will just go haywire.
All right.
So I'd like you to channel that, like narrow it. When you say men who feel like they're gods on earth, I'd like you to give like an example of what exactly you mean.
I'll go into some particular sins.
Okay, that would be better.
Like the sin of greed is a man thinking that he can take whatever he wants without repercussions. That is he behaving as if he is God. Everything belongs to me. Even yours belongs to me. No repercussion. You see the crime or the sin of murder. I can kill anyone I want.
And nothing will happen.
And nothing will happen.
But it sounds like people who have so much power in their hands.
They think they have so much power in their hands.
Okay.
The essence of this book is to show how frail they are in thinking
how
that
powerless
they
they
have
are
so
at
much
the end of the
power.
day.
They are powerless. They are powerless.
Okay, so you show their power, show their position, and then show the fact that at the end of the day you're just human.
Definitely.
You're not God.
As human as every other person.
Okay, so that's what the first part talks about.
The first part talks about the journey of the frailty of man who thinks that he is God.
Yeah.
God in heaven. And the second part
Yeah.
unravels the enlightenment that comes when that frailty is being exposed via very little things of life. It doesn't have to be a thunder strike coming from heaven.
Little things like what?
Like a nightmare. There is no one on earth bigger than a nightmare.
Reminds me of the king who had a dream who he wanted everybody
you
to
very much.
interpret. Was that what you had in mind when you wrote
No,
that?
but
Okay.
that is an example too from a Bible story. But I have witnessed men that have, because of a little nightmare, fallen short of what they thought that they were. Because a nightmare unravels how weak the human nature is, and finally giving up to the glory of God, that I am not God, I am human. So that is perceptual predestination, seeing what frailty of a man could be even before it happens. So we today will see dictators in different countries ruling their countries with iron fists and thinking no one can stop them.
Or question them.
Just like Gaddafi, he was caught underground, living like a rat. Same thing with Saddam Hussein. They were all disgraced, thinking they were gods, but they are not gods. I do not mean to disparage their names, but what is, what is not, and what will be, will be.
Ray, I must say your use of language is indeed powerful. I mean, I went through the book and I saw how you could explain something that looked really lengthy in just few lines, like 5 lines or 4 lines. The poems are short, but they have so much power and a lot of messages. In just one poem, we can get so much. So, but I'm particularly intrigued by the biblical references that you had. Even with your explanation, you can see that in your explanation, not to talk of the poems. There's even a part of the book, I think page 12, where he actually wrote a Bible verse.
Exactly.
In a part of the book. That's page 12. What was that Bible verse again, Ray?
Isaiah.
Okay, so let's see. Isaiah, okay, that's in the preface actually. He had that in the preface. Okay, so I went through that Bible passage and it was talking about knowing the end from the beginning, and hearing
Isaiah
your explanation,
46,
verse 10. And hearing your explanation, it already tallies. But I also want to know what's up with the reference, biblical reference. You talked about Noah's son. You had the Bible passage in the preface. Tell us more about you bringing in the Bible into these poems.
I would appreciate if you help me read out that Bible passage first of all, to see if it correlates with what we are doing.
Like I said, talks about the end from the beginning, and your explanation already has that. But let's go to it.
Isaiah 46,
verse 10. It says, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. I feel like it's a, it's a Christian show. All right, yes, Ray, where did that come from?
The title of the book. I didn't write the title of the book until the book was completed.
Okay.
I didn't know what the title of the book would be.
Oh, wow. Really?
And at the end of the book, I now discovered that there is a Bible verse, because I'm a Bible student. I've read the Bible, and
Back and forth.
Yes.
Wow.
As an intellectual exercise and as a spiritual exercise.
Okay.
And so it was easy for me to pinpoint the Bible verse that correlated with my book. Don't forget that my using the Bible is just as if a Muslim wrote the book, he will use the Quran. I am a Christian. I shouldn't be ashamed of being a Christian. And if my convictions that made me write the book, this book is not a Christian book. It's a book for everybody, but definitely it's coming from a Christian mind. So that is where the concept behind the book comes from. That God is saying in Isaiah, I have seen the end even before the beginning. That is the sole power that makes us look at God with so much awesomeness. God is not God if before the creation of the earth, he already knew what the end of it would be. Before the introduction of any creation, God already knows what the end will be. And that is powerful. And every other human has been trying to imitate that power of God. That before I set forth, I'm going on a journey, I want to go to Ahoda. Before I get to Ahoda, this is what is going to happen. That is powerful.
Before I get back.
Yes. I'm sure I'm not going to have an accident. I'm very sure what I'm going for, I'm going to succeed in that.
You know, that would be really beautiful. But go on.
But God has given us the power to be able to perceive predestination. What we can't change, we can perceive. And what we can perceive, we can understand. And that is the concept behind this book. It's that powerful for me. It's not just the book of
I know
poetry.
you must have perceived the outcome of the book even while you were writing it.
And I think I also perceived that we will be talking today.
That's so beautiful. Hope you perceive that I'll be wearing red.
I am telling you that.
Okay,
Excuse me.
I perceive
You
that.
are already wearing my brightest colors.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, in its full glory.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
you're delectable.
Thank you, Ray.
welcome.
You have a way of bringing that in. Okay, if you are just joining us, it's Atlantic Television Network Book World, and we have been talking about this particular book that's written by Ray Ken-Mbata. I'm talking about the Perceptual Predestination. He has told us about some of the words that we found in the book, which we haven't found in the dictionary, and he has given us his exact explanation to these words and where they are coming from, and the idea behind the title of the book. Now we have some more questions for Ray to help us understand this amazing masterpiece better. Ray, thank you once again for joining us.
My pleasure.
Okay, so the book addresses themes of power, which you already mentioned. We have corruption found in the book. We have the human condition. And one thing I like about the poems in this book is that it addresses you at any class you are in the society. He talked about the people who are up there in a position of power. He also talked about the people who are down there, whichever way you want to mention it. He made examples with different, okay, let me not go into all of that. When you get the book, you get to understand all of that better. But Ray, the themes I can find in this book, power, corruption, and the human condition. How do you hope your readers to engage with these themes? Basically, the question in simple terms is, what effects do you want these to have on your reader?
The effect I intend to pass through to my readers is that in as much as the world is complicated, God has made everything as simple as possible. In as much as this book is a book of poetry, poetry has a flowery language. Poetry also helps to subsume and to minute bigger concepts as little and as common as possible. And I tried my possible best to use as
Yeah.
layman's language as I could, in as much as some heavy words come in.
They sure did.
But my intention is that this book should be accessed by anybody that could be able to read basic English language and be able to tap in from the principles that it has born within it,
Yeah.
and also assist your life to appreciate what God has given you and use it to its maximum benefit of not just you, but also the world in return.
So what positive impact
Yeah.
do you desire to have in your readers, talking about corruption, talking about power, talking about the people who feel they are God, and then at the end of the day they are just fragile humans?
I intend to pass the message to them that there is a true God, there is a real God that created each and every one of us. In as much as He has given us little powers to do what we can, we've been able to create cars, been able to create buildings, mansions, been able to create things out of the creation of God. But let us not forget that we are not God, and God still remains God. And God, being who He is, has given us the intuition to manipulate whatever we are manipulating on earth here. We are able to send men to the moon. We are able to send men to space and even to Mars. But don't forget that God gave you the ability to do all that. Do not be like those that built the Tower of Babel. In creating a magnificent edifice, you denied the power of God Himself that gave you that intuition to do that. This book is a humility, it's a book
It humbles you.
It humbles you. It lets you understand that God is still in charge. Either you like it or not, He is not taking permission from you. The perceptual predestination also shows that you are human. You will one day die and be buried. God will never die. God will never have a burial stone. And God that even allowed you to die will also guarantee you resurrection. That is the dark hope of luminous. Luminous in this point is light. Dark hopes. You're on the ground hoping that light will shine forth at one point. And that is the hope of resurrection promised to us by the Lord Jesus Christ's resurrection from the dead.
And that's the explanation of dark hopes of luminous. What's the explanation behind satires of inglory?
Satires of inglory came about by my analysis of what Cain was trying to achieve by killing Abel.
Interesting.
Why did you kill Abel? What were you trying to change? Are you God? And when he was asked, where is your brother? He said, am I my brother's keeper? Why can't you keep he who you killed?
So
that is the beginning. Yes, I mean.
Yeah, I get that.
He should have resurrected him and presented him. This is Abel. But he couldn't do that. And that is satires of inglory. He had performed an inglorious action. And the poems I wrote concerning Cain's fall is satires. Those are satires, and the satires revealed the vulnerability of man. But the dark hopes of luminous encourages us that as Jesus Christ had died and resurrected, so shall Abel and the blood of Abel resurrect, even from the dark hopes of the earth. The earth cannot hold any who holds on to God, who holds on to Christ. So that is the correlation, not just giving you a grim prospect, but also giving you a prospect of hope that there is still God and that nothing is infinite until God says it is.
I am really intrigued by the passion in which you explain this book.
Yeah,
it shows that you wrote it with so much passion, and it's really personal with your explanation. Can you tell us what the writing process was like?
I started writing this book while I was in my final years of university education in the Enidoye University of Okada, Edo State, Nigeria. And getting close to end of my education, I wanted to analyze what was the essence of everything we were doing. All the exams, assignments, classwork, everything we were doing.
Yeah.
And it brought me closer to God in particular. What we are trying to be is excellent as God is. And I started penning down some poems. And in some periods of luminous, I get some inspiration, of which I did not get those inspiration from reading any other book. I wasn't reading any book when I wrote it. And it took me a period of 6 years.
Wow, 6 years.
Yes.
So I wasn't put these poems down.
And I wasn't writing it because I was writing a book. I told you from the onset that I didn't know the name of the book until the conclusion of the book. So from 2006 till 2012, I was penning down poem by poem, and found out that it all said one story. Just as the Bible is a conglomerate of various books by various authors, but meaning one story, the story of the world. This book mirrored what was happening in the Bible, that each of the poems, independent as they are and making sense as they are independently, but together they make one story. The hope that whatever you're passing through today, God has a better story tomorrow. That is perceived predestination of God in you. And at the end of the last poem, that is when I got the name of the book. And that is the encapsulation of this project.
If you listen to Ray talk about this book, like I mentioned earlier, you find out that it's a bit personal. And I've spoken to various authors, and I've always heard them say, oh, when I was writing this particular book, I was in this state. You know, something was happening at that point in my life, and that inspired me to put this down in writing. I've always gotten stories and situations like that. But you'll find out more about this book after this short time out. We'll go on a break where we'll get to hear from you. Yes, we got to talk to some Nigerians about their love for literature, how often they read. Do you even read at all? How interested are you in reading books? And when you read these books, what do they do to you? After the short time out, we'll be back. Please stay with us on Atlantic Television Network Book World.
Live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, social economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
I do love to read books, but mostly motivational books and books written by my pastor, Pastor David Ibiome. Because it's just something that you just find words of encouragement, and especially when you're down or when you're depressed. Books like that it tells more about the person's feelings also. So I love to get encouragement from books like that. It's not easy, especially when it comes to maybe, I don't know, different people likes to read novels, but if it comes to motivational books or books that preaches about Christ, then you find a lot of solace from those kind of books. So I encourage people to do that.
Reading book is a nice thing because the more you read book, the more you acquire more knowledge and more understanding and more experience about life.
So do you read books?
Yes, of course.
You like to read books?
Yes.
You find it interesting?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Ugochukwu.
Thank
What do
you.
you advise people who do not read books at all?
I would advise each of every single human being, at least once in a while, try to read your books.
Any book?
Any book, even Bible.
Yeah. I won't say I don't actually read them every time, sure, but I normally read novels. When I want to, when I'm bored, actually, I normally read books.
I don't like reading books that much.
Why?
Nothing. Not. I'm not much of a reader. I'm more of a listener. I do audiobooks. Not really books per se, but I like just knowing more about things, like how things work, what makes a keke move, what makes a car move. I just like knowing facts. That's just what I.
What kind of
It's not really books, but the internet, you can get basically everything from the internet. I know I'm missing a lot. I do read though, because I'm a student. I have to read. It's a must. But I won't say I'm a full-time. I read like how I'm supposed to. Reading is an habit. How much you put in it, it's what determines the outcome. So I'm not much of a reader. I won't say I am, but I have to read. I'm working on myself. No, not throwing all the books away, but I'll review them once in a while, but not as much as I am now.
Thank you so much for staying with us on Atlantic Television Network. The program is Book World, and it's a program where we get to delve into the realms of literature. And today we are reviewing a book called Perceptual Predestination, and we have the author of this book, Raymond Ken-Mbata, seated right here with me. He has told us a lot about the book. He has told us the idea behind the two parts of the book, because it's divided into two parts. And before we went on a short break, Raymond told us about the idea behind writing this book and what state and stage he was in his life at that time. But since we've heard from Nigerians about their interest in reading books, let's also get to hear from Ray. Did writing this book come from the interest you had in reading books?
Definitely, right from my toddler ages, I always had the love for written material. I have a younger brother that came 5 years after I was born. So within that 5 years, I was the only child.
Oh, I see.
Being the only child, I needed companionship. And somehow I found out in newspapers. My dad was a civil servant until he retired. And civil servants as at then like buying newspapers.
Newspapers, heaps of them at
Yes.
home.
And when I come back from school,
Yeah.
being alone at home, I see piles of newspapers and I'm alone. And when I take them out, I start flipping and looking at pages and looking at pictures, and some pictures will entice me and I go into them and I read the contents behind them, and somehow I get to develop like, wow, one day you're going to do something like this. Maybe it might not be a newspaper, but you're going to be able to explain some parts of what you see or what you experience to people, and people are going to appreciate the knowledge you share. So it had been on my subconscious long before I wrote the book. And this is not just the only book I've written, and this is not the only book I will write, because my intention is to pass information. It's not to show people that I know how to write. No, it is not a treatise in self-adulation or a treatise in self-adoration. No, it is being able to reach out to my fellow person. Please, this is what it is about. This is what life is about in words and in pictures. That is why I have beautiful illustrations in the book. So if you are not the kind of person that looks at words and are enticed, when you look at a picture, you want to find out what's there.
Yeah, so that's the idea behind the pictures.
Exactly.
Because we don't always have that in poetic masterpieces.
Exactly, and I want to make poetry accessible to everybody. Poetry shouldn't be a thing for the academics. It shouldn't be a thing for the knowledgeable only. It shouldn't be a thing for the high class. It should be a thing that everybody could use to explain what parts of their life that they don't understand or they understand and they want you to also understand.
But having a child, I was going to ask when you said as a child you read the newspapers. Having a child read the newspaper is rare.
Yeah.
The way you talked about looking at the pictures and then reading the writer's piece behind the pictures, I got to understand it better.
Yeah.
So did you get support from your parents at that age when you were reading and they saw that you loved to read and you always read?
No parent would not be happy seeing their children
Read,
pouring through.
especially.
I mean, not because daddy said
Yeah.
or mommy said.
You're just reading on your own.
I mean,
And you're enjoying it.
I mean, it was a delight for my parents.
Wow.
Although they didn't show it as much, and I know that Nigerian parents have that way of toning down their excitement. But
Okay. But you know, people always give excuses. A lot of times, people will give excuses. Oh, I would have been this person because when I was much younger, I loved to read, but I didn't get the support from my parents, so I stopped it. You know, you continued. And you wrote this book not as a child, but as an adult.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm asking if you got that support. Because I'm not hearing that as an excuse here.
I decided to do what I decided to do. There's a point.
Support
in
or
life.
no support?
I mean,
Are you indirectly saying you didn't get the support?
I'm not saying that I was asking for support and didn't
No, not
get.
asking. As a child, you might not even know you need support, but
Yeah.
you just find your parents supporting you.
My dad must buy newspapers. I must read the newspapers. So he, in taking care of himself, also took care of me.
Was his own way of supporting you, and you
Exactly.
see that as his way of supporting
I
you.
mean, and it was more than enough. Because
Okay.
there are people that
Yeah.
did not allow their kids to
Read
go
anymore.
deep into reading. No, go and do your maths, go and do your assignments, go and take your bath, go and sleep.
Yeah.
But my parents were at least, they were also avid readers. My dad and my mom schooled in India,
Okay.
and India is a place of spirituality.
Yeah.
So I was allowed to explore whatever I saw them read.
That's amazing.
And they had lots of books. They had libraries, and I still have a library of my own, a mini library. So I expanded my brains as much as I could. And at the time, when time came, I had to use the Christian theology and the Christian philosophy, if I should say that, to tame myself from reading above what was normal.
Okay.
Any other supernatural readings, I now tamed it down to the Bible. And reading the Bible, I understood everything I must have tried to read in theosophy, in philosophy, in Kabbalistic. I didn't care about all that anymore. The Bible was everything already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to gain insight into your creative process. And thank you so much for taking us through your writing process of this book. And you mentioned that you have other books that you have written.
Exactly.
Okay, do you have something that we should look forward to? Because we all seem like your fans right now.
It's a pleasure, and I will try my best to make sure that I do not lead you astray.
Thank you.
This is my first poetry book, Perceptual Predestination. Before this, I had a book I wrote in my youth service days in Lagos State called New Development in Nigeria, New Phase of Development in Nigeria. This is the second, Perceptual Predestination. I also have a second, although the third book, but the second poetry book called Eyes of the Night. I also have 3 other books that are ready but not yet printed
Published.
and published. And I am my personal publisher, Ovunda Literati Publishing Company, registered with Nigerian government. And I hope to come here again to present to you these other books. Some of them topics, let me give you just one topic.
Okay.
The problem with the African intelligentsia. What is the problem with all the degrees that we have in Nigeria? We have people that have multiple degrees, multiple PhDs, multiple master's degrees, and they live in squalor. What is the essence of knowledge if not to impact on your society? Why should you be the only one rich in your community if you are knowledgeable? What is the problem with the rich people in Africa? What is the problem with the university lecturers and intelligentsia and intellectuals in Africa? Do they solve any problems? Why are we still in squalor? Why are we still looked upon as a third world continent? Why do we still beg for aid? Meanwhile, you are begging for chocolate, and meanwhile, the cocoa is growing in your backyard. That book is coming out soon.
I would love to read that book, Ray.
Definitely.
Okay, so we'll look forward to it.
I hope to.
All right, so what advice do you have for young authors and aspiring poets who are looking to make their mark in the world of literature?
You should take it upon yourself that you are there to deliver people. You are not there to benefit from what people have done only. You are also there to be a benefit to people. You do not need to have so much money to do this. Just look into what God has created. Get the creation inspiration from God and create one yourself. It might be through painting, it might be through literature, it might be through poetry, it might be through engineering, it might be in various forms and aspects. But you should not just be a consumer, you must be a producer. You must be an essence of God to humans. God should use you to reach people. God should use you to better the world, better than what you found it to be. Do not come here and complain about government, complain about politics, complain about whatnot. You are an agent of change. If you are not changing the world is changing you. Take the step and make things happen. If you do not know how to make things happen, find others that have made things happen. If you do not know who has made things happen, look on to those who have put their foot in the sands of time and be an example that generations to come will look up to and say, yes, if he could do it, if she could do it, I can do it. I will do it. And I will end this speech with a poem I wrote and dedicated to Barack Obama. I do not believe I'm a black man. I believe I'm a human being. The black skin does not matter. I am a man. I am not a black man. The poem goes as thus. Agony of harm. I am a man. One blood. I am not black. I am a man. My complexion is dark. I am strong and I can. If I know, I learn and grow. I speak from the soul and I reap where I sow. Men of other pigmentation are abroad. Our common uniting bond is blood. Through tongues and tribes, they may differentiate, but we congregate to correlate. No one divide what God unite and cause a war to make us fight. I don't support a racist plan. I am not black. I am a man. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ray, for sharing that with us. That was so inspiring. You know, your passion for poetry and storytelling is truly inspiring. And I think a lot of young people out there are already inspired to go into poetry.
It's my pleasure to always be there.
So thank you once again for being an inspiration.
Thank you for listening to me.
All right, that is Ray Ken-Mbata. He is the author of Perceptual Predestination, which is the book that we reviewed today on the show. And I'm so glad to know that you are still with us. I hope you have had an amazing time. And that's where we wrap it up on this episode of Book World. Do not forget to stay connected with us on our ATN socials on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, on Twitter, now X, at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at atlanticnetwork.tv. I am Enidoye Jackson. And remember, Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Have a good day.
Live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.